如果你听起来不费力，那你的英文水平在国外是完全够用的。故事开始。
Caracas, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro consolidated his hold on power between 2013 and 2018 through a series of political, institutional, and security measures that reshaped the country's governing structure. Following a disputed election, sustained economic deterioration, and prolonged confrontation with the opposition, Maduro, a former foreign minister and close ally of late President Hugo Chavez, narrowly won the April 2013 presidential election after Chavez died of cancer the previous month. His presidency began amid questions over electoral legitimacy and was later marked by social unrest, the weakening of opposition-controlled institutions, and the creation of a powerful new legislative body that critics said undermined democratic checks and balances. In April 2013, Venezuela's National Electoral Council declared Maduro the winner of a snap presidential election with approximately 50.6% of the vote, defeating opposition candidate Enrique Capriles by a margin of less than 2 percentage points. The election was held weeks after Chavez's death ended nearly 14 years of uninterrupted rule by the socialist leader. The opposition contested the results, citing alleged irregularities and calling for a full recount. Electoral authorities rejected those claims, and Venezuela's Supreme Court later upheld the outcome. Maduro was sworn in shortly afterward, inheriting a political system deeply shaped by Chavez's concentration of executive power and reliance on state institutions loyal to the ruling United Socialist Party of Venezuela, PSUV. International reaction to the election was mixed. While several Latin American governments quickly recognized Maduro's victory, the United States and some European countries called for greater transparency in the vote-counting process. Washington said it was awaiting further clarification from Venezuelan electoral authorities before extending formal recognition, while emphasizing respect for constitutional procedures. By 2014, Venezuela was experiencing a sharp economic downturn, driven by declining oil revenues, currency controls, shortages of basic goods, and rapidly rising inflation. The country, which holds the world's largest proven oil reserves, remained heavily dependent on crude exports, leaving public finances vulnerable to price fluctuations. Widespread frustration over inflation, crime, and shortages fueled large-scale demonstrations beginning in early 2014, led primarily by opposition groups and student activists. The protests, which spread across major cities, at times turned violent, resulting in dozens of deaths and hundreds of injuries. The government accused opposition leaders of attempting to destabilize the country and back security forces in restoring public order. Several opposition figures were arrested during and after the protests, including Leopoldo Lopez, a prominent opposition leader who was later convicted on charges related to inciting violence. The government said arrests were carried out in accordance with the law, while human rights organizations raised concerns over due process and the use of military courts for civilians. The United States and several European governments condemned what they described as excessive use of force by Venezuelan security forces and called for the release of political detainees. Venezuelan officials rejected those statements, arguing that foreign governments were interfering in domestic affairs. As economic conditions continued to deteriorate, Maduro increasingly relied on executive decrees and emergency powers. In 2015, voters delivered a major setback to the ruling party when the opposition coalition won a two-thirds majority in the National Assembly, gaining control of the legislature for the first time in more than a decade. The opposition-led assembly sought to curb presidential powers, investigate government corruption, and pursue political reforms. However, the Supreme Court, whose members had been appointed largely under Chavez and Maduro, repeatedly ruled against the assembly, invalidating legislation and declaring it in contempt over procedural disputes related to contested lawmakers. Legal analysts said the court's decisions effectively neutralized the Assembly's authority, allowing the executive branch to govern with limited legislative oversight. The government maintained that the rulings were constitutional and necessary to preserve institutional order. Tensions reached a peak in 2017, when Maduro announced the creation of a National Constituent Assembly (ANC), citing constitutional provisions that allow for such a body to rewrite the Constitution. The move followed months of renewed street protests that left more than 100 people dead amid clashes between demonstrators and security forces. The government said the Constituent Assembly was intended to restore peace and promote national dialogue. Opposition parties boycotted the election for the body, arguing that its formation bypassed a required popular referendum and was designed to sideline the opposition-controlled National Assembly. The ANC, composed entirely of pro-government delegates after the opposition refused to participate, was granted sweeping powers upon its inauguration, including authority over other branches of government. It quickly assumed legislative functions, effectively replacing the National Assembly. International reaction was swift. The United States, Canada, the European Union and several Latin American governments said the creation of the Constituent Assembly undermined democratic institutions. Washington imposed targeted sanctions on Venezuelan officials, including Maduro, citing concerns over democracy and human rights. The Venezuelan government dismissed the sanctions as illegal and politically motivated. Under Venezuelan law, the 1999 Constitution allows for the convening of a Constituent Assembly, though legal scholars differ on whether a prior referendum is required to authorize its formation. The Supreme Court ruled that Maduro's decree was constitutional, a decision rejected by the opposition and several international legal experts. The Organization of American States debated Venezuela's political situation repeatedly during this period, with member states divided over whether the country had breached democratic norms. Efforts to invoke regional democratic charters failed to achieve consensus. By 2018, Maduro had further consolidated his position through an early presidential election boycotted by major opposition parties. He secured a second term amid low voter turnout and renewed international criticism, setting the stage for continued political confrontation and economic instability. While the government said its actions were necessary to defend sovereignty and constitutional order, critics at home and abroad argued that the concentration of power weakened democratic accountability. The period from 2013 to 2018 marked a decisive phase in Venezuela's political trajectory, with lasting implications for its institutions and international relations.
如果你喜欢今天的故事，别忘了按下赞，让我知道你喜欢这样的英文故事哦。想看更多简单又好懂的英文故事吗？快去看看我的其他影片，跟着故事慢慢变厉害。今天你学到哪个单字或句子最喜欢呢？或者你想看我下一集讲哪个故事，都可以在留言区打卡告诉我，我会看每一则留言哦。别忘了每天来打卡学英文，慢慢你会变得更厉害。